Hey friends, I hope you're doing well. I'm sad to report that Mojo Nixon has passed away, and I wanted to pay tribute to him by telling some stories. I got to know Mojo a little bit over the years, and he was really, really good to me. I mean, very, very good to me. And I just wanted to tell some stories, some personal stories about him. And it's very cold and a little windy out here, so I'll do my best. But I've told this story a couple times, and one of the earliest videos I put on this channel was how I went to see Mojo Nixon back in the 90s. And when you go to a Mojo Nixon show, you might come in with a bunch of baggage from the world and your week and how things were, but you just kind of let it go at the show. It's a celebration. Mojo had this way, he had a huge appreciation for the wop babaloo bob a lot bamboo part of rock and roll, and that's not celebrated near enough, but he would celebrate that side of rock and roll. And when you went to a Mojo Nixon show, it was a celebration, and you would leave in a much better mood than when you walked in. So I went to this show. It was at the patio in Indianapolis, and when I walked out, this is my neighborhood. I lived 3 blocks from there and would walk back and forth. And when I walked out, I saw these 3 frat boys taking a leak in the middle of the street out in front of the club. Now, this is my neighborhood. These were people who lived elsewhere and would come to the neighborhood and behave badly, and they never seemed to pay a price for it. And it happened to me a few too many times where I noticed things like that. And so Mojo comes into this story here in a second, I promise. So I just I'm not proud of it, but I snapped a little bit. I walked out of the show feeling great. I saw that, was reminded of things I didn't like. I started yelling at these guys, and I'm yelling at them, and they're just thinking, who's this crazy guy? And they kind of back up a little bit, and I'm yelling, and then after a little bit, they must have realized I was just yelling and I wasn't really going to do anything, and then they realized there were 3 of them and only 1 of me, and the whole thing kind of turned and started to get ugly, and they start yelling at me, and I'm thinking I'm about to get my ass beat, and I'm backing up slowly, and I bumped into something, and I turned around, and it was Mojo Nixon. And Mojo starts yelling at them, saying, man, these frat boys are the same everywhere. And he just starts yelling at them. And let me tell you, Mojo Nixon knew how to yell at a frat boy. And he's yelling, and they had to think that he was, and he talked 800 miles an hour at a loud voice. They didn't know who he was. They're like, who is this crazy guy, and why is he yelling? And he scared the hell out of them, like so much that they apologized for everything to me. And then he's like, hey man, what's your name? And I'm Otis. He's, Otis, you all right? Threw his arm around me, and we walked back into the club. And he was super cool. Super cool. So I always would tell people about the night that Mojo Nixon saved me from an ass whooping, and it's true. So however many years later, my music starts paying the bills and doing better. And Mojo, he did a little time at WLW in Cincinnati, on-air disc jockey, after he stopped playing music. And I grew up listening to WLW because I was a Reds fan, and I never really, I must have stopped listening because I don't remember Mojo on the radio then. But I found out about it later. But then he became a disc jockey on Outlaw Country. It was a big blowtorch, and it's perfect vehicle for Mojo to be Mojo. And he was great on the air. Well, one day I find out, somebody tells me, Mojo Nixon has been playing your new record. There's like a song called Preacher Steve that he loves, and he started playing other songs too. And they went on to be really good to me and played me a lot on Outlaw Country. I later was told that Mojo was the only reason they started playing, because he liked it. So he started playing it, and then everybody else on the station started playing it also. And so I was grateful for that. I thought, wow, man, that's pretty cool. But and then sometime after he started playing the record, I saw him at the Continental Club in Austin, Texas. He was there, and I walk up to him. It was real loud in there. I just walk up and I said, "Hey, Mojo, my name's Otis Gibbs, and I just want to thank you for playing my record." And he kind of leans in. He's like, "You're Otis?" And I'm like, "Yeah, man." And he's like, "Come on, let's go outside." And we walk out in the back of the Continental Club. If you've ever been there, you know, like right there at the back door, there's just musicians will sometimes stand around. So we're standing there, and he's like, "Hey, man, I really like that record, man. That's really cool." He was being really nice to me. I told him the story of how he once saved me from an ass whooping. He didn't have any memory of it at all, and I mean at all. He's just like, "Really? I did that?" He's like, I remember he said, "You're not just trying to make old Mojo feel good, are you?" And I said, "No, man, it happened." And I later came to think, you know, of course he wouldn't remember, because that's what every night of his life was when he was on the road living in a van, playing, you know, dives here, there, whatever. There was probably so much craziness that took place every night that why would he remember, you know, that particular thing? But he was super cool about it, and he laughed about the story, and he's like, "I really like that Preacher Steve song, man, you know, so we're gonna keep playing it." And so that was cool. I got to meet Mojo, and he was neat, and then I would run into him once or twice a year. Like, he lived in Cincinnati, but I would see him in Nashville and Austin when I would go down, or when I lived in Nashville. He would come down for events or whatever, and I would see him in Austin, and he was always super cool to me, super cool to me. Had an album come out, and there's a song called Big Whiskers that is about a giant catfish, big long story song, and he's like, I remember seeing him one particular time, and he's like, "I heard that new album you got out, man, that Big Whiskers, I'm gonna make that a hit. Old Mojo's gonna make that a hit." And I'm like, "Well, thank you, man, I appreciate it." He's like, "No, I'm telling you, man, that's a damn good song." He's like, "I like that one. I don't like them other songs of yours about your feelings, but I like that catfish song. I'm gonna make that a hit." And I'm like, "Thank you, Mojo, I appreciate that." And man, he played the hell out of that thing, which is beautiful, and I appreciate it. He didn't have to. He didn't get anything by doing it. He just did it, and he liked something and he played it. Remember those days when people used to do that on the radio? People still do that on, you know, on outlaw country. And so there were just so many different times when I had interactions like that. I went to see him at his hotel once. I was going to interview him for my podcast, and there's this hotel in Austin, and I remember I walked in, and he's like, "I apologize for the smell, Otis, but somebody locked themselves in the bathroom all night last night, so I had to piss in the trash can." And I laughed because it was funny as hell, but it's Mojo Nixon, so I didn't know whether he was just, you know, making it up or whether he was telling me the truth. So it stuck in my head for a long time, and I remember about a year later, I just asked him, was that the truth? And he's like, "Hell yeah, that was the truth. That was Mojo." So he didn't know. He's such an entertainer. And when we did that interview, like when you're around him, just around him, he was thoughtful, and he would be quiet, and he would just talk to you normally, and had really interesting thoughts. I remember he said something about Bob Dylan. I don't remember why we were talking about Dylan, but he said, looked at me really serious, and he says, "Man, Bob Dylan, every instinct he ever had was correct." And I believe that too. It's such a strange thing for an artist, because we all have instincts that, you know, are wrong. Mojo thought Dylan, every one he had was correct. I thought that was a beautiful observation, just one of those passing things. But when we were in that hotel room, I had to interview him, and he was being, you know, just normal and quiet. Not quiet, but I mean, he's being normal. And when I turned the mics on and the interview started, he got really loud and animated, and he's throwing his arms around, and he kept kicking. And I'm laughing because he's being funny as hell. He's talking about Haystacks Calhoun, the wrestler. He's telling these stories, and I'm immediately like all worried that my audio levels, because I checked them when he was just talking normally, but when he started telling stories, he got all excited, and it's loud. He's being really loud, and I'm just like, oh my God, are these distorting? And I'm trying to turn it down and stay involved in the interview. And he was great, telling the story about, I had the song Don Henley Must Die. He's telling a story about he played at the Hole in the Wall in Austin, and Don Henley showed up, and which was hilarious. So Mojo's being Mojo, and, tells him he's singing the song and all of that. And I guess Don Henley was drunk, and Don Henley got up and sang Don Henley Must Die with Mojo Nixon, which shines a pretty good light on Don Henley, that he would go along with it like that. But then Don Henley left, and so Mojo and his band kicked into I'm Already Gone. They start singing that, and Don Henley runs back in and like, you son of a bitch, that's a Glenn Frey song. And whole thing was funny, and it was a beautiful, beautiful little part. Now Mojo could step his foot on the gas pedal and really take it over the edge into, I'm just pretty much a mellow person who doesn't go for the blues stuff myself, but that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with it. But Mojo told me a story on the microphone about somebody that I know, and it was just unbelievably embarrassing, this story, and I was just kind of, and it was a little bit lewd and all that, but he's just telling the story because, he's Mojo, and when he was done, I just like, Mojo, I can't publish that. And he's like, what? And I said, that's not what I do, man. I'm not out to embarrass people, especially people I like. And he's like, you better publish that. If you don't, I'm gonna tell everybody, Otis Gibbs hates free speech, First Amendment. Otis Gibbs hates the First Amendment. I'm like, I can't publish that, Mojo. And he's like, I'm telling you, I'm coming to Otis Gibbs concerts. I'm standing out front with a big sign that says Otis Gibbs hates free speech. I can't believe you're doing this to me, Otis. And he's just like really animated, and I'm kind of like, is he joking? Is he for real? And he went on for quite a while, and afterwards, and he was really serious. He wanted me to publish it. He wasn't serious that he was mad at me. And I ended up was just like, I can't publish this. And I sent an email to the person the story was about, and I said, I can't publish this, can I? And they're like, no, please don't publish that. And I never did. It's probably deleted at some point. And Mojo never said a word about it, which was cool. And but that's, I don't know. Mojo was a good guy from the little bit that I'd been around him. I'm a guy that was probably around him 12 or 15 times. I drove him home late at night from some places when everybody else was drunk, and I don't drink, so I'd drive him back to, when I say home, I'd drive him back to the hotel, and he'd just be super cool, man. Super cool and supportive, and a fun person to talk to and fun person to be around. I feel bad that I never went over to Cincinnati after I moved back to Indianapolis, and because I kept thinking, I'll go over there and interview Mojo for the channel. I feel bad that I didn't do that, but I can't imagine how heavy it must have been to be on that cruise ship, the Outlaw Country Cruise, and have Mojo pass away, just to know. And they had a couple days left, I believe. There are people that I've had on this channel, friends of mine, people I love, like Chuck Mead, Warner Hodges, Eric Amble. There's probably a lot more, like people that have been on this channel that were there, and I'm kind of curious to talk to them, and maybe we'll be able to talk to them here, and they'll share their thoughts with you guys sometime in the future about that. But I don't know. Much love to his family, his wife and son, and I believe they were there on the cruise also. And much love to his friends and co-workers, everybody at Outlaw Country. And I will see you guys somewhere down the road. Rest easy, Mojo, and much love to you.